AI-driven digital transformation and theoretical computing. He has won over 5.5 million rands in research, innovation, and developmental grants, mostly in the last 5 years. He was the pioneer head of the Technopreneurship Center at University of Johannesburg. In his 14 years of experience in academia and the software industry across domains such as financial markets, serious games in public health and education, and technology consulting, he has left a trail of 100+ awards and recognitions, 60 over 60 publications, and an incredible record of top-notch delivery of algorithmic and innovative solutions, creating many innovations and securing over 4 million rands in students' annual salary worth of jobs for his students from 2018 till date. Professor Abejide is the recipient of the University of Johannesburg CBE Dean's Top Senior Lecturer Award for 2018 in a faculty of over 338 academics. South Africa Department of Public Service DPSA Ignite Arc Innovation Awards 2018, the University of Johannesburg Vice-chancellor's Distinguished Award for Innovation of the Year 2019, valued at 500,000 rands. South Africa Department of Communications Living 4IR Hackathon Overall Best Innovation of 2019 to South Africa State IT Agency Public Service Innovation Awards of 2019, and the Vice Chancellor's Distinguished Award for Teacher Excellence of the Year 2020, valued at 150,000 rands. In 2020, he secured software licenses for the entire University of Johannesburg community worth over 1.5 billion US dollars. In 2021, he was inducted as a member of the prestigious Academy of Distinguished Teachers of the University of Johannesburg. He is passionate about computer science theories, their industrial applications, and training young people in the science of computation, algorithmic problem solving, technological innovations for business and social good. Ladies and gentlemen, without taking much of our time, with a round of applause, let's receive Professor Abejide Ade-Ibijola for his presentation. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. It was quite overwhelming myself. I'm thinking, I feel like you're introducing someone else. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, friends, family. Professor, let me start by first thanking Professor Adebayo for this invitation, the Vice-chancellor of Covenant University. I really do appreciate, Prof. When you're around Johannesburg, please let's meet. Then Professor Ajanaku, who I met through LinkedIn, and we've been chatting a lot after that. Thank you very much, Prof, for this initiative. This first writing your portfolio, you reached out to me, said, let's do this. And I said, let's go. So thank you, Prof, for the opportunity as well. Can you please to confirm that you can see my screen, this one, my projection here?
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I think we've eaten a little bit into my time, but I'm going to wrap it. If I cannot say it, then I'll have to wrap it. Meaning
yes, we can see your screen, sir.
I'll have to speed up and make sure that I cover the ground. Please confirm that I can go for it. Can I go?
You can go, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So special thanks to my mom is listening to me right now. She joined. And my dad is also there as well. I can see my dad there, Professor Ade-Ibijola. Thank you very much, Dad, for everything. So let's get started. So I'm going to do an introduction first of myself and what I do. Then we will talk about developments, because I looked at all the topic the way Professor Ajanaku's interest came. I thought each of those words in that topic were like huge. Like there was innovation that you could spend a whole day talking about innovation. There was development, and that could touch on social context of things at times as well. There was research, and research means a lot to us as academics as well. So I thought, you know what, the way to begin this would be to start from development, which is like the end, and then map everything out up to research again. So I'm going to talk about development as in the context of the reason why we should do research in the first place, which is like the end goal. Then I'll talk about research, innovation, and industrial applications, what those things mean in my space, my beliefs about those topics as well. Then I'll talk about commercialization, which is where the juice is. And we don't milk this enough. So most of the things we have lying around on our laptops, there are things that easily, if we speak to the right people, we can put them on the shelves, in shops, and places where people can actually pay for those things. And if we can do that, we can create jobs and livelihood for our people, all from research. Funding as well, I'm going to talk about impact. The impact we know and we're accustomed to is citation indexes and stuff like that. But the world is moving on to a lot of technology. So there are things about intellectual property and patents and stuff like that. I'm going to touch on those things. Then innovation from my space, I'll show you about, I think about 15 or 20 different innovations, but I'm going to go through it very quickly. Things that I've worked on over the last few years with my students at the University of Johannesburg. Then suggestions, and I will do some reflections where I'm just going to discuss what I think. So introduction, let's get started. First, Prof. Ajanaku, I hope you wouldn't mind. I have our conversation here. This is the story, just to show that, things can really, big things starts very simple. So on this day, this blessed day, Prof. Ajanaku wrote to me on LinkedIn and said to me, top of the morning to you. I got you by Dr. Akinlawan. Dr. Akinlawan is here as well. So Dr. Akin, thank you very much for making this happen on your side as well. He's in the States. I need to chat to you about academic matters. And I say, yeah, we'll do that. And then I gave him my phone number. And on the weekend, he gave me a phone call. He shared his business card. I shared mine with him as well. And he gave me a phone call, and the rest is history. Quite simple conversation. So sir, thank you very much for having me. It's the first time I'm coming back to give a talk in Nigeria. So it's I'm very excited about this. So my background, I'm a computer scientist. My bachelor's was from Nasarawa State University, Kefi. So if anybody's joining from Kefi, I'm from Kefi. Then my master's was from Futa Akure. Some of my mentors might be joining as well from Futa, some of my teachers back in the day. Dr. Gilbert Amofa taught me back in the day in Nasarawa State University. So thank you very much for joining. Salute. Then in academia and industry, I have over 14 years of experience. My research interest lies in AI and applications, like my introduction says. And I work on algorithms and also formal languages, application of formal languages in my space. Then my research supervision, I do AI and applications. Recently, I joined the business school. So I'm doing a lot of work in digital transformation of businesses, of governments and policies and stuff like that. Then over the years, one thing I've always been stuck up and doing in the industry is just creating technologies, and also in academia as well. So tech creation is my passion. I make sure that the theory of computation doesn't take me away from that. So I love theory. I love mathematical aspect of things. My dad is there. He loves maths as well. So, but then I love more practical. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk to you guys about. So this is me at work. Typically at work, like most academics, I do postgraduate supervision. I love to compete. So sometimes you might meet me on international stage, national stage, kind of competing. I match my students there with their technological skills that I've given them over the years. And we compete and we try to win something. So while I'm in the university, of course, teaching and mentoring, specifically, I'm very passionate about mentoring. I've always believed that every talent we have, we need to give it to the next generation so that they can improve and be better than we are. So I spend a lot of time in doing that. Mindset and character things that I think they are not in textbooks. So I always kind of emphasize those things in my classrooms as well. Research that I've mentioned. Then I have this mentoring space. It's on Instagram. At the end of my talk, I'm gonna share the link. So this is where I mentor young people in skills development and technology entrepreneurship. And recently, I have some new startup companies from my space, which are young people that are starting tech companies. Then job creation is another passion. Bring funding to the university for equipment and stuff like that. Then like every other academic, I do these things like external examinations and all of that. So that is me at work in a summary. So development. I strongly believe the reason for doing research should be development. I know sometimes we get carried away with numbers. It's the game. So how many citations do you have? How many publications do you have? And we then stay in a society where things are falling apart, but we're the smartest minds in society, but we don't really care. We just come in, we get paid, and then we just do research. Probably something that is not so useful, and with all due respect, but some things are more useful than other things. And I'm going to give you guys an example. While I'm not going to touch on any topic or any field to avoid. All right, so the questions of concern, I lined up a few questions of concern, especially within the African context of things. I think Europeans have a lot of luxury. Americans, they have luxury of doing theory, a lot of theory. Why? They already are very industrialized. So these guys have a lot of industry facilities, jobs are there, and companies are growing. So if they decide to do a lot of X's and Y's, nobody's going to stop them. So the first question is, how do we know so much? And then we graduate people that cannot find jobs. So that is a question of concern in terms of development. How many jobs can a government create? That's another question. So I know we sometimes look at the government and we keep saying, we are the jobs. But the most successful companies have startup companies and small businesses and top multinationals that are actually creating those jobs for them. Can innovation from a research work lead to job creation and also startup of small businesses? So why are we looking at research as just this thing when we're done with it, we just put it in the shelves and that's it? With technology today, we might be having a leveled playing ground for the first time because you can buy a good laptop, sit in a village and then be able to do something special. Back in the day, we didn't have access to internet in Africa. So could that actually mean something? That's a question. So what is the future of work? There's been a lot of questions about the future of work as well. So there's that question. Okay, let me try and mute our colleague that's joining us there. Okay. How do we innovate, do innovative research? So research is research, but some have innovation and some don't. Some is just like recycling of something within another context, a case study of here, a case study of the other place, kind of thing. How do we identify intellectual property and protect it? So if at Covenant University, for example, I'm going to use you as an example because you're my host. If you have some very young second year students, 200 level students, and they're doing something very fascinating, how do you identify that, get it disclosed and get it protected real quick? Maybe that will be the next commercializable product. How do we commercialize innovations? How do you put a dollar sign or a Naira sign on a piece of research work? Who is willing to pay for your research? So as an academic, I think that's a very crucial question. Before you even begin to waste your time, and essentially when time is wasted, then life is wasted anyway. So before you begin to indulge a lot in the topic that you think you're passionate about, is anyone in the world even willing to pay for this? So if no one in the world is willing to pay for this, it's a problem because then we are stuck as a society, especially in the African context. How do we quantify impact in the fourth industrial revolution? Our metrics, are they getting outdated? Like just citation index. I can tell you, there's been many experiments to show that if you write about things like marketing or things like LGBT, trending topics, or even data science, trending topics, you're likely going to get much citations than someone who writes about things that might even be way much more relevant than yours, but then it's not a trending topic. So it's quite a tricky metric over there. Are we exercising academic freedom? So colleagues, academic freedom is that you can research whatever you want. Nobody actually is putting a gun to your head to say you must research this thing. So why we stuck with topics that our supervisors gave us and that everybody in our department is working on, when there are things that the world needs more, we are more passionate about, but we are refusing to research those things. Is anyone even reading our articles or our books? We keep publishing. Are we sure people are reading them? So that goes back to the library. Books, dust shelves. Does the industry understand our articles? So the guys that are willing to swipe their cards for us are actually in the industry. So in Nigeria, you probably find First Bank of Nigeria, they want to look at your mathematical model. They want to see if it can help them in their operations or something. But we decided to start this article by saying a lot of jargon and we throw these guys off. And these guys are very smart at what they do. They're the ones making the money. But because we cannot communicate, so there's what's called science communication. Scientists, we're guilty of that a lot. Engineers are guilty of that as well. We need to improve those things. Those are questions. Does Africa have the luxury of excessive theoretical research? I seriously don't think so. It's a personal opinion. Because I once met a colleague of mine that was researching this thing, the vocal cord of a platana frog. Like you look right now, I'm sure you don't know what it means. Maybe some people in this room know, but trust me, it's a specific frog that's found in a specific place. And this gentleman was researching into the vocal cord of this frog. Like, how does the frog sound like when the frog makes a sound? Which again, you could argue that is useful, but then in Africa where there are no jobs, I'll say something else might be more useful than this. Then how does artificial intelligence affect everyone's research? So the elephant in the room is AI. Trust me, AI is taking everything away, so we need to pay attention. Speaking about solving problems with our research, I think it's a good place to start from is to look at infrastructure. Here are a list of African problems. If you can solve one of those problems, trust me, you help about 30 to 35 out of the 54 African countries. So if you can calibrate your research in whatever field you are to kind of tap into these problems, then you'll be in business. Infrastructure, healthcare, hunger and poverty, this is part of the SDGs. I'm going to go to SDGs very soon. Social cohesion, people like Africa is divided. People are fighting over gold, religion, race, tribes, all of those things. If you can have some solutions to those things, maybe as a political scientist, maybe even as someone in technology, there's a way you can think of tech to help. Equality and inclusion, tribal, gender, race, all those things are here. Access to quality education is top, one of the top concerns. Insecurity, corruption, bribery. In my country, we know a lot about this one. That's a topic that's something that plagues us a lot. Caring for the vulnerable as well is something that it's quite important. The poor, because if you actually care for the poor people in your society, it's called social aid, you actually reduce crime because there's no moral standard when someone is poor. The moral standards kind of fall apart. People step into the street and they do a lot of crime. So the disabled as well. Then economic empowerment in terms of job creation, financial inclusion, agricultural yields and stuff like that. So these are things that are common to Africa. Those things appear in the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Some of them appear as well. You can see zero hunger, no poverty, and many of them are here as well. So you might want to begin here to look at these things that the world needs. These are the things the world needs. The world needs this thing, the world is willing to pay for this thing, but if you're not researching this thing and you're not innovating in this space, then you're just doing something for yourself and yourself alone, for citation counts, and that's it. So connecting the dots. So what I'm here to do is to attempt to connect the dots. Some of the things you might already know, some of the things are personal experience of myself and the work I've done in my space, so I'm going to share those things. So we know the problems, that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to step into research now. I'll talk about innovation and commercialization. That means if you create stuff in your institution, how can you put a dollar value on that stuff? And now young people can begin to do that. Industrial applications, how do we bring these guys back? These guys look at us as very archaic most times. The industry guys, they think academics don't know stuff because they are on the field. They're actually doing the stuff, but then we just write stuff that they don't understand. Development in terms of skills, job creation, of course, going back to those problems I mentioned. So let's look at how those things connect. Research. So if you're doing original research right now and you're listening to me, then your output is probably one of the following. You're developing new models, new frameworks, new theories, new techniques, new processes, inferences, use all these methods. Either you're crunching numbers or you're just making, what's it called? Qualitative inferences. Then if you are more in STEM domains like science, technology, engineering, or maths or medical field, you're probably doing stuff like creating new algorithms. If you're in electrical engineering or mechanical, you're probably coming up with new machines, artifacts, products, tools, software, hardware, and the list goes on. And you might also find yourself just doing reviews and summaries and writing opinion pieces. Or sometimes you are a PhD student or a master student, you're working on work in progress, and you have speculative results and stuff like that. So, and your outlets are typically journals, conferences, books, book chapters, collections, and all of that. So that's what research look like to us right now. That's what we signed up for, all of us, when we say we are researchers. But then this is now what we can do in terms of many more awesome things that we can do. So innovation, that's when we step into the innovation field. So loosely translated, I would just say it's something practical that solves a clear problem. That's what I would call it. That's my own personal definition of it. So I like to remove technology from it so that you don't ask me the question, what if I'm not in tech? Can't I innovate? So then we step into a philosophical space there and we get stuck. But right now, I've decided to remove technology from the definition to allow everyone to see themselves in a space of innovation. So usual source of innovations are those things I highlighted in the previous slides: algorithms, machine stuff, tools, products. If you can create something like that, something practical that solves the problem, you're probably in an innovative space. The outputs look like this: white papers, patents, copyrights, and so on. So other definition of innovation exists. Like I said, without technology, you can define innovation without technology. You can say it's a process flow, models, designs, things that are hypothetical for the future. You can talk about that, but you need to at least step beyond theory. If you still stay in theory, then I would like to think you're not being innovative enough. So you need to step into step out of theory to be considered innovative. And the elephant in the room is artificial intelligence. So we're in the fourth industrial revolution. If you don't want to talk about AI, AI is coming for you. That's the thing. So it's taking jobs, and I'm sure you know about the trends. So it's the elephant in the room. We need to talk about it. So the next slide, as part of innovation, that's going to be weird if I talk about innovation without talking about AI. So I'm going to touch on AI a little bit. AI, elephant in the room, I would like to just give it a very simple definition. Machines with minds. The whole idea is to do this kind of three tasks that humans can do. Humans can do mundane tasks, they can do formal tasks, and they can do expert tasks. Expert tasks are things they learn in school. Formal tasks are things that require a lot of mathematical kind of structure to it. Then you are like playing games. Then mundane tasks are things we do without thinking about it, like walking around and ability to see people. That's mundane. So when machines can do that, we use all these terms to describe those machines. I don't want to bore you with the details because I'm going to go to practical examples of things in my team that we do. So like machines that can understand languages, we call it that part of computation NLP. Robotics are machines that can move around. Planning, machines that can think and just structure stuff, like timetable planning and stuff like that. Machine learning, machines that just consume a lot of data sets and they can estimate what is going to happen in future. And the list goes on. These are machines that can see. We call them computer vision. So this is why you should worry about this, because the application is going to hit you anywhere in society, from education to business to economics to society itself at large. Healthcare, government, warfare, the list goes on. So, and if you are thinking about how do I step into that space where my research translates to innovation, and I want to involve some AI in it, but I'm not in AI or I'm in AI, whatever it is. So it doesn't matter. I just want to tell you there are two types of AI. You can, if you have a lot of data sets, you probably hear within statistical AI. Again, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but for the guys here that are technical, they probably know what I'm talking about. Then the symbolic part of AI as well. If you know the rules of the AI, you can tell the machines the rules and the machines can do it. Here, the machines, you need to give it the data. It figures everything out, all right? But here you need to just tell the machines the rules and the machines then can try to do it. So how do you begin? If you're skilled, you just go ahead, you do it. But if you're not, in your institution, maybe it's Covenant University, maybe you're in a department that you guys can come up with hiring someone that is very good at this and having them in your team. So you coin a problem in agriculture, for example, you give it to this person to solve for you. Or you can have a center like Professor Ajanaku Center, where you go there, you collaborate with experts in that center. Or you can even like just collaborate with people that are actually very good at this, and you have your own context. Maybe your context is agriculture or economics, then you bring it and we see how AI can mix up with that and give you good results. Industrial applications, again, another keyword that appears in that topic. So for here, I just have key questions to leave you with. First thing is, what are the needs of the industry? So if you're doing research, you need to ask these questions if you want the attention of the industry. What are the needs of the government? So you know what the government's struggling with? Nigerian government struggles with a lot, for example. So you might want to ask those questions and look for how your research can speak to those things. What does the society need? That's a very deep one. That speaks to SDGs and those African problems that I showed you. Then who is sitting on the bags of cash in my field? So I expect everyone to ask this question because this is the guy that will pay for your research. Who needs the result of my research? If no one does, probably you shouldn't be researching that thing. Where can my innovation be deployed? That's another good question, please. And when you have an innovation now and you've answered all the industrial questions, then you have something that you can actually give to a government, industry, or to society. Many guys are lined up to pay for those things. So let's talk about how you get them to pay for it. It's called commercialization, funding and impact. So in commercialization, as an institution, the first thing I think you should think of doing is to set up a technology transfer office. It's an office that allows you to do things like patents, copyrights, you get a lawyer involved, the inventors, the sign some documents, and all of those things are in place. And commercialization experts can take this product and take it to the market for you. Because as a researcher, I can assume that you don't know how to market stuff. I don't know how to market stuff, but I know experts that are very good at this thing. Intellectual property policies, you need to say to your staff and students that anytime you invent anything at this institution, you need to disclose to us. And we allow you to share the benefits of these things as well. Benefit sharing formula, this is the tricky part. People will not disclose their innovations or inventions if you don't give them enough benefit sharing. At the University of Johannesburg, this is a negotiation thing. We speak to the university, we say, okay, since I invented this stuff at my own time or my own laptop, how much of these benefits can I get when this product is commercialized? Meaning if this thing brings money, how much of this money is going to be mine? What is fair is the not getting greedy as an institution, because when you're greedy, then it discourages innovation. People don't want to innovate because you don't incentivize it. Funding, if you can commercialize your innovation, meaning people are paying for the things you've invented from your research, the institution will have money, generally speaking, to be richer, all right? So many institutions in Nigeria are self-funded, Covenant University is private. So it's another way to generate sustainability for the institution, a lot of money for the institution. And you can then give grants to your research students, a lot of money for those students. From the global community, you can get more money as well, especially when you solve for SDGs. Then as an academic, it's a good retirement plan. So imagine you just as retirement, you have 10 intellectual properties that are commercialized and you're getting 25% on each of them. That is something. So that's a good, when it's done right, it's a good retirement plan for an academic. Impact, job creation. Of course, when you have a new commercialized product, you need new people to manage it. So you need to staff. Then you can also step into a space on a global stage when you do research that's competitive, not just, again, the routine stuff. Another case study, something that nobody actually reads. So on a local scale, you can solve local problems. On an African and a global SDG scale, you can do more as well. You can leave a mark on solving African problems and SDGs, which is like legacy, because most academics, when they retire, they don't get as relevant as they used to get relevant. And those things can fall apart. You can give talks all over the world and travel the world and try to help even at retirement. Innovations from my space. This is the part you've all been waiting for. The admin blabbing is over. So colleagues, friends, family, everybody listening to me. So what I'm about to show you next are a few things over the years that we've created from my space. Research work that has turned into innovation. Some of them are commercialized, just the storyline I've been giving you since I started. So first I'll start with this one. During COVID-19, we couldn't see each other face to face. So the first thing we did was my team was to try to animate, create avatars that can actually look like the lecturer, and then the avatars can speak languages that the person cannot speak in real life. And it was well received. So what we did with this was to introduce people to new modules. In your teaching, you give it to students. Students found it very exciting. So it's kind of like a nice multilingual. So I was speaking Zulu, for example, but in real life, I don't speak Zulu. I speak Yoruba and English, a little bit of Hausa. I'm not sure what else I speak. But then, yeah, but we were able to do this. So this was me speaking Afrikaans. Afrikaans is like Dutch, well spoken in South Africa as well. But then this picture of me as well, it's kind of like an animated copy of me. That's not a true picture of me. Then this is an algorithm I sketched with one of my second year students that year. She's in third year now. I think that was last year, 2021. So her name is Umpo Seforo. And what we did here was just to write an algorithm that automatically shuffles students to group. So in the click of a button, we can have the reshuffling happening. And we pick students automatically that are very strong to be the leaders of the groups. In my team, we've developed several video games. Some of them are commercialized. So here's a very recent video game we call Plague Warfare. It's a 3D game. In this game teaches you about plagiarism, not to plagiarize and how bad it is. The game is staged in the environment of the UJ library. So our library, this environment you see is actually our library. So while you play, you can also explore the library and move around and see how our library is set up. And then this is well received. Right now, it's installed on several machines in the library. It's available for download free online. Our students, when they play, they learn a lot about plagiarism. Here is a commercialized innovation from my team. So the University of Johannesburg makes about 4 million rand every year for students' profit from this app. So this app allows students in marketing management to sell products while they are in school. So it's another innovation from my team. And Python Lab, this is research and innovation as well. During COVID, we needed proctoring systems that could stop students from cheating. So students can write their code here, and here they can look at the lab question, and they can, when they solve it, they can run it. And when they run it, we keep track of all of the processes running in the background, making sure the student doesn't cheat with every way possible that we can do that electronically. Here is an app that checks if a student is going to fail. So this was with one of my students, Safwan Patel from 2021. What we did here was to take marks from previous years, students' marks, put it in a machine learning algorithm and be able to predict if this student is going to fail very early in the semester so that we can intervene and say, guy, they do well, because if you continue like this, at the end of the semester, you are more likely to fail. So we did that. Python bot, this is a chatbot that teaches you how to program in Python. Dev chat, this Python bot was a research paper as well. This was a research paper as well. Dev chat is a research paper as well. So dev chat allows you to chat with a deaf person. How that happens is the deaf person cannot hear you, but they can speak. So they speak to the phone, it's converted to text. This text on your side is spoken to you with text-to-speech algorithms. Then you can speak back to them, then it's converted to text and goes to the other side. So it's kind of like what happens there. It's a research paper as well. Proctoring systems using random photography. This was last year this is my student here. His name is Siabunga, Mark Longo. And this proctoring systems kind of uses the camera to watch you while you're writing your assessments online. Then this piece of technology here, when you're watching a long video and you don't have the time to go through everything, you can ask the static video a dynamic question. So during COVID, it was very helpful as well for students, because students came with questions and they had a long video and they had exams and tests to write. So they just quickly would query a static video and they could get a response from it. Pathbot, this one, when you're on campus, you're stuck and you're new to the campus, you don't know where to find what. You can easily just chat with this bot and ask the bot. The bot's going to ask you, what can you see? Where are you? And you just describe what you can see. And the bot can direct you from where you are to where you need to be. And this is based on some graph theory algorithms at the back. Personality shuffle, very useful one. This one allows us to group people of similar personalities together so that a group does not fight every time. So people that are aggressive, people that are agreeable, people that are more like leaders in the team, so they are shuffled nicely so that everything is optimized. Reged problem solutions and generation. This was another innovation, but this guy allows us to generate question papers in regular expressions in computer science without actually creating those questions. It means that a student can actually practice 100 times before the exam with questions that have similar complexity with the examination, and then they can have more success rates, chances of succeeding. This is similar to that. This one has to do with generating programs. So it's an automatic code generator that generates programs for students to practice from 2018. Then this is quite recent with one of my PhD students. She might be here, Okoluwa Iwashokun. So here, this tool basically takes your proposal and does what your supervisor would have done. So it proofreads your proposal, tells you the proposal is missing objectives, it's missing this, it's missing that, then you can quickly fix it. Here was a project that I was involved in 2016 at Barclays Africa Group when I was consulting at Barclays and Barclays Bank. And this project just goes through chats of counterparties in the financial space and just quickly makes inferences and checks what the market positions are. And it was also a research paper, but then Barclays found it useful and they used it in the team. So CV generation is quite important for if you're looking for a job, because most people are not so convenient with capitalization, how to style their CVs. So this algorithm here could generate CVs for you. So all you have to put in is to put your details, then it standardizes it. There's what we call normalization. So what that means is that when you write your first name with a small letter, for example, because you don't know, then this technology here just normalizes everything for you. Then generates about 200 CVs for you, different styles, and you can pick one from it. Lexical contract summarization. So this technology picks, it's also a research paper. It takes a contract and tells you what you should look at for in that contract, because contracts are too lengthy. So they're daunting. So you cannot read everything most times. So you just send the PDF to this technology, then it does that for you. Cellbot, here's another piece of tech. We created this in my team this was my master student for that year, 2020. And this one just simply tries to advertise for a small business online. So you think that someone is posting stuff on Twitter, but no one is posting that stuff because the AI is generating that stuff and pushing it itself to Twitter. Clinical notes, most people don't understand clinical notes because doctors try to write jargon in clinical notes. They write all these things that we don't understand. So this algorithm picks a clinical notes and explains it to you in plain terms. Here's another one, problem synthesizers. This generates programming problems and pushes it to Twitter. So students are always on social media, so we try to get them on that side as well. Because if you wait for them to come to the classrooms, they might not actually be there, but they're always on Instagram and Twitter. So this was a piece of tech like that. CV summary, CV comprehension. This guy is an application of AI in recruiting. So we call it CV passing. So you just basically drop a lot of CVs to this AI, and then it looks for the details in the CV, then does the shortlisting, and then advises the human resource person on what to do. This was a project with my PhD students from 2019, Martin Kunye. So there are quite a lot of that I can show you, but because of time, I'm going to move on. So here are some articles that are recent as well from stuff. The predicting student success is currently under review. Here are some of our chatbots that we put into this journal article. Recently, congratulations to Okwalu, my PhD student. Other things are tools and articles. So I have quite a copy of that to show you. And if you're really keen on the things I've created specifically for teaching and learning, I can share the link with you. I've got a link for that specifically. Let's wrap up. Suggestions and reflections. So for suggestions, I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to share with you my opinion about several things. Then we're going to reflect together about those things. I believe by now, if you're an academic and the year 2020 and it's fourth industrial revolution, I think you need to innovate. You need to do something that has to do with AI. You don't have to write code though. So in physics, I don't think you should be writing. In politics, I don't think you should be writing code. But I seriously think you should be asking political questions that touch on AI, because AI is here to stay. And the world is changing too fast. I think solving for X is beautiful. Trust me, I grew up solving for X. I love solving for X. However, solving societal problems is even better. I think Africa is too behind for us to do too much theoretical stuff. Again, like I said, you need to ask the question, who needs my research in the world? If you struggle to answer that question, then trust me, that might lead to you changing your research focus, and it's not a problem. That is okay as well. I think we need to weave in training into this whole puzzle, because without training, then we're going to be short-staffed, and we're not going to have enough people that are passionate-minded and people that have skilled hands, and we're going to be stuck as a society. We have many graduates. Some of them are in NYC. When you interact, you don't find much content, and it's because we don't train well. I don't think it's because people were inherently not good. If we train them well, people will do better. With great teaching, you can close the loop. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's say you train a good student and the student loves academia and they've come back, they become a lecturer, then they're going to be a great lecturer. And then they go ahead and they train more people, and those guys also become good students. Then you have what you call the ripple effect. Before you blink, it's been 20 years and the system actually has more people around. But if you train very poorly trained people, then they come back to the system, they become very horrible lecturers, and then we are stuck. And now we can't even innovate because there's just a recycling of what's been done for the past 40 years in the same department, so to say. I think you should focus on solving problems that matter. There's what I call one lifetime constraint. None of us is going to live twice. So if I'm alive for only one time, I think I would love to just solve important problems with that one lifetime. I think the future as well is multidisciplinary in nature, research in nature. I think you can mix things up. So talk about AI and tech, for example. You can talk about politics and AI, agriculture and AI, history and virtual reality. The options, there's so many options. You don't need to be a techie to be able to get into that space. As an institution, I'm not sure, I'm sure maybe Prof. Ajanaku can probably shed some light, but I think you probably have a lot of things like this already existing because governance is on top of the game. However, if any other institution is listening to me as well, I think innovation is a culture. So for the culture, you might want to think of makerspace, like innovation hubs, incentives for innovation. If your students are doing well and they're innovating stuff, crown them, give them medals, give them money, you know what I'm saying? Hackathons, student startup companies. So assist your students to start up companies very early from second year, third years. Tech entrepreneurship, if they want to start up companies in technology, validate them. And those companies can actually, your institutions can own shares in those companies, give them startup capital if the ideas are good. Benefit sharing for commercialized products. You need to make sure they can get some percentage of it. Awards, prizes, visibility, and this creates the buzz around the university. Everything just stops being just theory, but it becomes practical. It comes alive, and students are excited about that. So imagine having a research paper that has an innovation in it and solves a particular sustainable development goal, and it's commercialized, and hence there's money coming from it. That's like you're killing several birds with one stone. So that's the future right there. Where to begin? I think you need to begin with the elephants in the room right now, which is you need to first understand the problems of society and government and industry. Then you need to talk about skills training for your people or for yourself if you don't have one. You need to think about AI plus your field. So what is my field? How can AI come in there? You need to think about multidisciplinary collaborations. Who can I collaborate with? And there's one idea we have at the University of Johannesburg, we call it professors of practice. So you need to go to the industry and look for the best guys there and crown them professors of practice. So if some guy is sitting, for example, at UBA Bank, and he's so good, he's a manager there, he's been at UBA Bank for 30 years, he's brought in maybe 300 million naira at UBA Bank, or whatever he's done. That's the guy I want in my third year class teaching accounting, because that guy knows accounting like real life, you know what I'm saying? So I will still have my academic professors, but I need someone on the industry as well. So for practical modules like mining, engineering, you better get the experts in the field to come and be professors of practice. We do that a lot at the University of Johannesburg. Gains, what are you going to gain? I think commercialized outputs are going to come out. A lot of funding is going to come out. Solution for society, local solution within the Nigerian context, African solution, global solutions. Relevance of your work is going to be relevant. People would like to listen to what you do. Job creation, which of course is the noble thing to do, and not just graduate students that are unemployable. Appeal of academia to young people, our smart people can come back to academia. Skills for development, production, funding, and the list goes on. Reflections, I'm wrapping up now. In the next 1 minute, I should be done. How do we quantify innovations? So I'm just going to, on my reflections, these are things that I've been thinking about, things that I think. Alex, if someone can kindly help me mute that. All right, so all right, so how do we quantify innovations? All right, papers we can count. So in academia, we have metrics for papers, H index, I index, we have all of that. But for innovation, how do we quantify? How do I say this person who has done this in engineering is equivalent to this person who's done this in English literature or something? So that's something that is open for discussion, and also research. If you're keen, you can look at that. Benefit sharing, what is fair? Should I say to you, because you were my student and you came to an institution, you got your qualification, does that mean I cannot pay you some royalties from a piece of software that you wrote and Facebook came and bought that software for $10 million? What do we say about that? How do we compete with the industry in the payment of skilled workforce? So if I see some guy that's really, really good in the industry and I want him to come into academia, how can I pay for that kind of skill? Because the industry spoils people with money. So Academia has always been a place where there's no money. So how attractive is that? How do we bring along non-scientists and non-techies? Surely these decisions affect them. So if some guys in history, how do we bring them along in this conversation with AI and technology and innovation? So on a final note, how do we weaponize our young people intellectually? Because our young people, they are the future. So these guys are physically strong. They think in technology because they are from this age and generation. And they all have a lot of time on their hands. And if you can weaponize that and put a lot of skill in their mind, which is what I do in my space, I do a lot of that in my space, you might end up with the greatest innovation workforce that ever you can ever get. And that's still future. And finally, how do we innovate to help our society? Clink, I clapped. Guys, everyone, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. That is all I have for you for today. I really do appreciate Covenant University. You're doing a great job. I see the rankings. I was like, wow. Professor Adebayo, thank you very much. Professor Ajanaku, thank you very much. That brings me to the end of my talk.
Wow, thank you very much, Professor Ade-Ibijola, for the wonderful presentation. The precision was something else, and that was just scholarship at another level. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. But while you're still here, sir, I think we'll open the floor for questions. So if we have questions for Professor Ade-Ibijola as touching the subject matter of innovation, development, and industrial applications for research findings, please, we would like to open the floor to us. Questions? Yes, any question? While I was still expecting a question, let me quickly take a couple of chats here from Dr. Anthony Sholanke. Thank you, Prof, for the impactful presentation delivered with precision and clarity. Okay, there's a question here, but it actually goes to the director, Kukri. Please, do Covenant University have a research center for researching and learning? Professor Ajanaku, can you quickly address that? Do Covenant University have a research center for researching and learning? Any other question can come in through the chat box. We'll take them as times permits us. Thank you. Professor Ajanaku.
I've responded to that. We do have a research center for research and learning. And that's under Cookreed in Covenant University. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, any other question?
And it's raising up his hand.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon. All.
Good afternoon,
sir.
Please, I don't know if a question, how can we be able to transform? Because I think looking at the science department, like physics and chemistry, there are a lot of thousand theoretical projects on ground. And from my mere thinking, most of these things they are not put into practice. I think if there is a way in academic culture or academic environment, if a project is written, how can the department be able to put it into practice before we can move on other projects? Because a student at a level of PhD or in MS, he may have a very reasonable project, but to put it into practice is a problem. I think academia they can be able to look into it and come out with a reasonable solution to it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, fantastic. Chair, can I take that question?
Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great question. And I kind of touched on the answer to that at some point, because the thing remained in theory. That's the problem. It remained a theory. And the master's or the PhD students actually knew the theory very well. They studied it. They got a fantastic PhD. Problem is that they couldn't bring it to life. And we need solutions that can be brought to life. So that reminds us that the skills are very important. And again, that model where you bring in a professor of practice is very important as well. Because the professor of practice can then say, maybe in chemistry could say, okay, I work with a pharmaceutical, for example. And what you've done, this equation, you can speak to a scientist in our lab, and this equation could translate to a synthesized medication. And this can be tested on rats, and we can have real results. And we can actually then sell this to some pharmaceutical company. That's where it becomes commercialized. So I think the skills are missing right now. and it might be too late to force all our academics to have industrial skill sets, but we need to bring in the industry guys and give them recognition for what they know, because these guys know a lot, but then we like to sideline them and say they don't have masters, they don't have PhDs. But if we can bring them in and give them titles as professors of practice, they can help our students to bring those ideas to life.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. Quickly, we have some questions here. The first one from Joyce. Joyce, how do we relate AI and forensic science? How do we relate AI and forensic science? And the second one from Grace Onos Ofodu. How do scholars in linguistics marry AI in research? How do scholars in linguistics marry AI in research? And immediately after Prof answer this question, we'll invite Engineer Sani Samuel for his question. Go ahead, sir.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to start from the second one, of linguistics and AI. In fact, there's a space called computational linguistics. That's a whole domain. So I think in computational linguistics, there's a whole broad spectrum in AI, from tone labeling, which someone in linguistics can do, meaning that for languages, you can do research in terms of how do we label African languages and make them available to the machine, for the machine to learn in some way, all the way to algorithms that can actually pronounce local languages and all of that. So I think the answer is, please look at computational linguistics. That is where you would find yourself. AI and forensics. I think there are a lot of computational neural network algorithms in AI that allows you to watch these videos real time and can tell you if there's crime being committed. So depending on the aspect of forensics you're looking at. So I think if you're looking at surveillance before a crime is done, but if you're looking at digital forensics, you might want to speak to someone in that space. I don't know much details on the ground in that space, but I can tell you AI finds a lot of application in the spaces, because in digital forensics, you also have a lot of large data sets. So you might find machine learning very useful in that space. I hope I was able to answer your question. Chair, are you there, Chair? I think I can take Ibrahim Ahmad Ogu. I think if this Ibrahim, I remember that's probably Ibro. Ibro, is that you? Your hand is raised. Do you want to switch on your camera and ask your question?
Okay. Good afternoon, Prof. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah, okay. Please shoot. Go for it.
Thank you very much, Professor Abejide, for that presentation. I just have two questions. The first is, I would like to know UJ's strategies in attracting industries, the hurdles, and how you were able to cross over, so that those serve as lessons for CU to learn from. And then the second is the issue of professors of practice. If you integrate them in the system, I would like to know the promotion scheme you have in place, such that when you bring these guys on ground, I'm sure that they will also anticipate a kind of elevation all through their career life in academia. I believe you have a structured scheme. Yeah. So how do you make their qualification such that there's this equivalence? Because you said professors of practice. Are they just titled, or there is a way they are designated within the within academia or within UG, such that they have a promotion scheme that equates their titles to maybe that of a professor, that of a senior lecturer, or that of an associate? Thank
you very much for your question, Samuel. We'll start with the professor of practice. I think absolutely. So these guys, they just need validation. These guys are not in for the money. They're not in for promotions. These guys are already at the top of their game. So for example, a typical professor of practice would be like Dangote, for example. Dangote is not coming there to collect maybe 400,000 naira per month or as a professor or something. He's coming there to inspire the young people and tell them, this is how the business started. This is how you market your stuff. This is how you become an entrepreneur. And it could even be like 3 sessions in a whole semester. It is the injection of energy into these young people that it does to them. So think of it like, I think in Nigeria, we have this thing we call honorary PhD or something like that. So it's almost similar to that. So there's no promotion. Some of them don't even want to get paid. And some of them, the moment you appoint them, they give donations to the university. So, I mean, you win on all fronts, actually. The only thing is now you have to address them as professor. And I don't think the title of professor we have too much of it to go around. Anybody that wants to be called that can be called that if they contribute to knowledge and to the growth of mankind. So that's the first one. Second one is you asked me about how do we attract the industry. I think in South African system, South Africa incentivizes research. When you publish in South Africa, well, you have to publish in specific journals, which are accredited by the government. When you publish, you get money. You call it research funds. And out of the research funds, if you are rated researcher, you can even claim some of them as personal funds. So for researchers, they have incentives to do research, good research. That's one. Then secondly, the industry guys also get tax subsidies for coming to universities and doing joint projects and stuff like that. So you might want to look at a scheme that involves tax subsidies, meaning as a private sector, you are, instead of paying 39% tax, you are allowed to pay 20 just because you are the University of Johannesburg and you're doing a lot of work for the good of mankind. So there are schemes like that can be used. Then finally, everybody loves recognition. So if there's a company that you know you need them to get to where you need to get to, then you recognize them. You call them in your events. You allow them to put their banner at your events. Then they see it as marketing strategies. They go to their industries and they say, we are supporting University of Johannesburg's research and all of that. And they score their own points on their scoring board. Their marketing team is super happy. Then on your side, you get what you want as well. You get funding from them and things like that. I hope I was able to answer your question, Samuel.
Yeah, beautifully. But sir, are there hurdles that you met along the line when you were trying to establish those strategies?
Say again, Samuel?
I'm sure you met some hurdles because your situation.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Right
yes. So yeah. I was slightly lucky in South Africa. There are many structures already on the ground before I came to this country. So I didn't have to recreate most of those things myself. However, for me, it's about getting out there, putting yourself out there, and getting your results out there and all of that. So, but then Samuel, you and I can take things offline. My email address is on the screen. You can drop me an email. We can continue the chat because I remember the chair told me about the time, and so I would like us to move on.
Conscious of the time, and we have the VC online.
Absolutely, that is why I see some hands raised. I would like to advise that let's connect with the keynote speaker via the various social media handles and the email as displayed on the screen. Without much ado, I would like to invite the Vice-chancellor of the university, Professor Abiodun H. Adebayo, for his remark. The VC, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, the moderator, Mr. Tat. And I want to also join my voice again today to receive the speaker of today. Talking of no other person than our erudite professor and a distinguished professor, Professor Abejide, right? Am I correct?
Abejide Ade-Ibijola.
Yes, Abejide Ade-Ibijola. Yes, thank you so much for that inspiring words. And I have listened, I listened to you right from beginning to the end. And I must say here that I have been able to pick up one or two things here today. And it's interesting to know that you have been speaking on innovation. And to also note that innovation, we can innovate from anywhere. And innovation does not necessarily mean you just have to put so many machines together in order to come up with something new. It could just be little here, a little there, and you come up with something different. And that's why in our PhD, in the platform of PhD thesis, we ask that what are the contributions to knowledge? In other words, what are the innovations you have brought on board? And it was a wise man that said, it is putting 1 and 2 together in order to come up with something different from where you are. That is the old and a little bit here and a little bit there. And you are able to now make a little difference and improve on the old ways of doing things. And we can say you are innovative. And innovation is not just restricted to science alone. it cuts across all disciplines. It could be from your classroom. You may want to change and adopt a new style of teaching that it's not known anywhere. You can also innovate through your research work, through some of your community engagements. So it is all encompassing. And I want to appreciate what you have brought on board, and Covenant indeed appreciates this new dimension. I recognize your father, whom you said is also listening here. I know he's also a professor. And thank you so much for bringing this diversity on board. I could also see persons from Ekiti State University and some other universities here, because the names I'm seeing here, they are not really familiar to me. And for everyone on board today, I want to say thank you so much for coming on board.